Well, hey everyone, this is Troy Harper here at Harper Cigar Lounge, and welcome to a show that I've been wanting to do for quite a while now. I'm going to do a show today about me surviving the 80s and my experiences in the 80s as a kid, as a teenager, my experiences, the way things were back then. I'm going to try to remember as much as possible. But right now on my channel, I'm doing a series of short videos from the 80s, our experiences from the 80s, things that you just don't see anymore. And before I continue, though, I appreciate you all that have tuned into this. I've got a really great show here. I think you're going to really enjoy and love. I'm going to take you, down a trip to. I'm going to take you down a memory lane trip to, however you want to say it. I'm going to take you down memory lane, a trip back to the 80s, um, and let you know my experiences and how that was back then for me growing up. So I'm excited to do this. I really am. It's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to do this. So I'm excited. So if you've tuned in to watch this, I appreciate you guys. If you're new to this community, this channel, and you've subscribed, thank you so much. Thank you all of you that have been with me for a while now. But if you're new and you've just discovered this channel, uh, subscribe. You have nothing to lose. There's a lot of great content here, a lot of great stuff, a lot of fun stuff on this channel. It's just a great community of headbangers, cigar smokers as well. Got cigar content, got heavy metal, hard rock content, got Scally Cap reviews and other cap reviews that I've done off and on. So a lot of really cool stuff. I've even done some hot challenges in the past, which I want to do again. I've got to do that. But anyway, guys, if you've just discovered this channel and you're new to this, subscribe, hit that like, leave your questions, comments, and feedback for me. Share this content with everybody you know, and make sure you hit that bell below to get all the latest content, latest updates on this channel. I would love to have you be a part of this community. It's a great community. It's growing every day. And I'm here because I want to create great memories for all of you that are maybe around my age. I'll be 56 this year. But I'm here to create great memories, maybe things that you've forgotten about. That's one of the comments I got from somebody that discovered this channel and some stuff I put up. They thanked me for putting some of the content I put up because it caused them to have to go back and remember some great things that have happened in their life, concerts they've been to, and their first concerts and who they've seen. That's what it was all about on that one. I'm just enjoying this. I'm enjoying recreating memories for you guys around my age, and maybe some of you that are newer to this channel that are younger that never got to experience 80s. I'm going to, give you some stories and some things that went on in my life, and just creating things that give you guys a taste out there of what we got to experience in the 80s. I know some of you guys got to experience the 60s, 70s, maybe the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. For me, it was, just starting to discover things in the middle 70s through the 80s, early 90s. For me, that's where I've got my best memories. But the 80s was the big part of my life. It really was. But anyway, guys, welcome. This is Harper Cigar Lounge. I'm Troy Harper. And I'm so glad to be a part of this, to be a part of your lives, to be here with you. So I hope you'll have a great time with me today. I've got a lot of things to discuss. So let's get into it. But anyway, so I was born in 1970. Started really kind of discovering different things when I was about 7 years old. That's where I really started kind of wanting to know more about what's going on out there in the world. My dad played guitar and sang a lot, and so I was early on. My mom also played a lot of records, a lot of different kinds of music. And so at a very young age, around 6 years old, I was already starting to get interested in music. My parents bought me a bunch of cassettes when I was about 7 years old. There was REO Speedwagon. They bought me the Beach Boys. They bought me, oh gosh, they bought me some Elvis stuff. And I really took to REO Speedwagon. I really took to that more than anything. And I'm going to pause this because I've got to grab that REO Speedwagon album. I had it on cassette, but I found it on vinyl later. So I gotta grab that really quick. I'll be right back. Okay, well I'm back, and this is like I said, this is I got a bunch of cassettes when I was a kid. REO Speedwagon, the Beach Boys, Elvis. I can't remember who else I got, but this was what I took to. This is what I took to the most. Out of anything my parents bought me, I and this is the Arnold Speedwagon Lost in a Dream. This came out in 1974. Um, three years or so before I started really liking music and getting into it. But this was the album that I really took to as a kid. Of course, it was on cassette at the time, like I said. There's the back of it right there. But anyway, REO Speedwagon Lost in a Dream. I just really took to this band. I really started liking that harder edge kind of sounding stuff. Anyway, here's a better picture. Here's the better picture. This is the record sleeve on the inside. But I really liked that look. I liked the guys with long hair, and I liked the way they dressed, and I liked just that edginess to the music. And by the way, if you guys don't have this, if you're an REO Speedwagon and you don't have this, you have got to get this album. It doesn't have Kevin Cronin, and I'm trying to remember this gentleman's name, but it doesn't have Kevin Cronin as a singer at this time. But this guy had such a great voice, very bluesy kind of a voice. I will look that up while we're talking. But just that kind of music just really caught my attention. The guitar work, just the edginess of it. Excuse me, my eyes are itching. My allergies are kind of getting to me a little bit today. But just man, the way that music sounded, it just really caught my attention as a kid. And then I started like looking through my mom's vinyls. She had a compilation vinyl that had Alice Cooper and Kiss. "Calling Dr. Love" was the song that was on this vinyl with all these different artists on it. And Alice Cooper, it was "School's Out." And I started like really like starting to like that sound of music. So that was my first taste of, I guess, anything that really caught my interest as a kid. And of course, this was the late 70s. This was like in 77, 76, 77. But that's where I really started, like, I guess, wanting to indulge in the excesses of that era. It just got me excited about life and what else is out there to explore and to find out about. So yeah, but that album right there really caught my attention, and I started listening to that all the time. I listened to the other one I listened to is the Beach Boys. I listened to it was the Endless Summer album. I listened to that a lot. There's a song called Wendy, and of course, I had a crush on this girl in school. Her name was Wendy. I had a crush on her, so I'd play that song over and over and over. And if you've never heard that song, look it up. From the Beach Boys, really good song. But I would play that over and over and over, thinking about this girl in school and in elementary school. Um, but Lost in a Dream came out in 1974, was released October 74. And the hits off of that was "Give Me a Ride, Roller Coaster." And it was Mike Murphy on lead vocals, Gary Richrath on guitar, which rest in peace, Gary Richrath. My gosh, guitars that we lost a long time ago that I just miss so much. Neil Doughty on keyboards, Greg Philbin on bass, backing vocals, and Alan Gratzer on drums and backing vocals. So that was who was a part of REO Speedwagon at that time. But man, that just really got my attention, got my juices flowing, made me starting to really get excited about life and start thinking about girls more, of course, through some of that rock music, I'll admit. Especially, because of the Beach Boys album, made me think about this girl so much that had, the song Wendy, and then this girl's name was Wendy. Anyway, so and then a year later, well, I guess, continuing on, still hearing a lot of music through my mom. hearing my dad off and on play guitar and sing. It made me want to, get involved with music more. And so as time went on, I was always kind of discovering who I liked and everything. And then I met this kid, his name was Ross, went to his room to hang out with him one time, and there was all this stuff all over his walls. It was Kiss, and there's all these guys look like superheroes, and the way they looked. And this was when I was 7 years old. Um, all these pictures of Kiss everywhere on his walls. I was like, who are these guys? And he told me who they were. I'm like, I've got to hear these guys. I mean, are they like superheroes or are they, who are these guys? He said it's a rock band. I'm like, well, I've got to hear what these guys sound like. So he put on Kiss Alive 2, which I should have brought my Kiss Alive 2 album because that was like the first album I saved up for a whole year. But anyway, I wish I had that with me. I'm not going to leave you guys again. But if you can't remember what the Kiss Life 2 album cover, look it up, Google that. But anyway, I heard Detroit Rock City, and that was it for me. After hearing REO Speedwagon, now I'm hearing Kiss, which is like 10 notches higher, like just blasting guitars, explosions. This was a live album, so I could hear explosions, I could hear people screaming. And you could hear the fire come out of Gene Simmons' mouth on this album. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like crazy. And it just got me like wanting to know more about Kiss. But that became my band. Kiss became my band. Me and this kid actually had a pact that that's all we would listen to. We started our own Kiss Army Club or our own Kiss Club. He had this big walk-in closet, so we used that as our club for all the Kiss stuff. And we would just talk about Kiss, and we would trade Kiss cards and all that stuff. And I might have to leave you guys one more time. Yeah, I gotta grab one more thing, guys. I apologize. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I promise I won't leave you anymore. But I just decided I had to grab these things. Anyway, so this is the album right there that I listened to. First thing I heard from Kiss was this through my friend Ross at the time. There's the back. And when I saw this album, I was like even more like wanting to get to know what this band was all about after seeing this album cover. And of course, he showed me all the other albums he had at the time. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to get to know this band more. And I just went crazy with this. And then when I saw the inside of this, it just drove me crazy even more. This very famous concert shot right here, the explosions, the balls of fire coming out, and these guys on these platforms that are raising up in the air, and the drum kit that's raising up in the air. I mean, and the lights, and oh my God, guys, I just was going nuts. And so I was really, wanting to get to know this band more. And then and then this book, it showed, their early years, how they it just showed, their early years and up until that time that I discovered them through my friend. Um, there's just an example of the inside a little bit. Let's see here. Yeah, so let me start. So this is the original book that came with this. This is the original stuff right here, guys. But anyway, so over here, on both sides, it shows like when they first started out, what they looked like up until 77. And Gene Simmons just looked badass. And then let's see here. And then Ace Frehley and Peter Criss just really like dug or got into how they looked, in the old days. So like now I've got to go back and start, listening to some of the old stuff. And so anyway, but so I listened to this and I went home and I told my mom I want to buy this album. She goes, I don't have the money. So I went to, we went to Pomida. It was a Pomida at the time, I believe. And the old Pomida was like way smaller than what they were later on. They had vinyls and everything. Going through their vinyls, and I saw the Kiss Live 2. They only had one or two copies left at the time, and I'm like, oh my god! I was trying to get my mom to buy this. She wouldn't buy it, and so I told her, I was like, I'm going to save my money up. You know, whatever I do around the house, can I get some change? Can I get something to save my money up? I want to save up for this album. So I saved up for almost a whole year, and for some reason, that might have still had one copy of that Kiss Live 2 left. And I remember that they're probably going to discount it and get rid of it because I've been there for so long. I was like short $5, so my mom gave me $5. I believe it was like $5. I asked her if she would, you know, give me the last little bit of money to buy this album, and so she did for some reason. And thank you, Mom, love you, thank you for that. But anyway, so I went and they had it. I bought it and I took it home and I opened it, and inside there was this, you know, this order form. This is the original order form. All this merchandise. I mean, T-shirts back then were $6. Now you're going to pay like 40 to 50 bucks. The concert book was $3 at the time if you want to order it. Now they would be about 50 bucks original, or approximately. There was belt buckles in here for $8 each, $5. The Kiss radio, $9.50. If you were to try and find that now, you're going to be paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars and probably not in great shape. They had posters for $2.50 each. They had a cap for $5. They had another poster for $2. But anyway, but yeah, Kiss Army wants you. Definitely join the Kiss Army. I wrote letters to Kiss all the time. Never heard anything back from them. I was so disappointed. But anyway, there's the original temporary tattoos that came in this. I just remember opening up that album after I took it home, and I found this stuff in it. The only thing I don't have is the letter. They had a letter to the fans, to the Kiss Army, which is what we were called. Anyone that was a part of Kiss, I believed in Kiss and wanted to support them. Even people got tattoos, which I got, you know, a tattoo, which um, there it is right there. I got that later on in my life, so I'm definitely officially a part of the Kiss Army. But I just remember taking it home, opening it up, seeing this book, seeing the tattoo, seeing the, you know, the order form, the letter to the fans, and I just remember just, you know, smelling it. Doesn't smell as good as it used to, but there's just a smell of these vinyls when you first open them up at the time. There's just a smell. I can't explain it. It was a smell of the 80's or the 70's, I guess, at the time. But it was just awesome. The way those albums smelled, it was just awesome. But I was telling you that me and my friend, we would trade trading cards. And here's some cards right here, some original Kiss cards. I've even got some sealed up in the wax pack still. But these are the original that we would trade back and forth, so we both would, you know, work at getting the whole set, for, you know, that, for those cards. And all, there were so many great photos of Kiss on those cards. It just made you feel even closer to them, made you feel like you were more a part of them, holding stuff. And those cards had a certain smell too. The wax pack cards. I'd go down to, I can't remember the drugstore in Shatter, Nebraska at the time when I was a kid, but they started bringing in all the Kiss trading cards of the wax packs, and I would buy those. I bought baseball cards, you know, but they all had like a certain smell to them. It was just a smell that I cannot explain, but it just smelled great. And just those physical copies just had a, yeah, they just had a certain feel to them, a certain smell. And then you put that vinyl on the turntable, and it kind of had a little bit of a crackling sound, or I don't know, it just didn't sound super clear like CDs or, you know, anything now. It just had a certain sound to it. And it was just special. It was just special to hold that physical stuff. And you know, and I loved to read back in those days, so I was always buying comic books and paperbacks. And I got the original comic book that came out in '78 with that Kiss had with their original Kiss, or with their original blood in it. But I always took good care of that stuff. I always knew something would be, they'd be worth money someday. They'd be special, and they'd be rare. You know, so I always took good care of my stuff. I'd look at it a little bit, you know, be careful of how I turn the pages in those comic books or how anything I treated. and I'd put them away in safe places where nothing would happen to them. But there's just something special about that physical copy in your hand, whether it was paperback books from movies or just made up stories, whatever the case was. Um, there was just something about all that physical stuff. It just put you in a place where you had to imagine things more in your life. You had to think about things more. You had to just use your imagination more. So that's what I miss about the 80s. I mean, there was no cell phones. There was no computers. There were computers in school, but they were not like the computers now. They were very basic. They were mainly used to help us with our schoolwork or to create some banners and stuff, which were very generic looking. And it took forever to make this stuff. It took forever to print things off. But things were so different back then. No cell phones. There was no internet. My parents would get HBO and different things, and that's where I discovered a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows. Kiss Meets a Phantom, I saw that for the first time on HBO. I saw Halloween on HBO the first time. I think I saw Caddyshack the first time on uh, on HBO Stripes. Just really funny stuff. Just that movie there I saw on HBO for the first time. Caddyshack. There was at that time video stores were starting to come in a little bit, and so of course every weekend you'd go either you had to go out and buy a VHS player, or they had I forget what they call it, but they were like a big disc that went into a disc player, and it had the movie cover on the outside and all that. I forget what they call that, but I remember going to a hotel with my parents on vacation in South Dakota, and they would rent the player for the room, and they'd rent so many movies that went into that. And then VHS tapes started coming out, and you'd go to the video store every weekend, and you'd rent movies. So we rented a lot of movies every weekend, a lot of VHS tapes at that time. And every weekend I would rent Van Halen Live Without a Net, and I'd rent Iron Maiden Live After Death. Um, when I was about 16, I think I was about 16 at the time I started. Yeah, 16. That's when the 5150 album came out for Van Halen. That's what this tour is from. And then, of course, this came out before him, but the video store had those to rent. They had certain concerts you could rent. I think we even rented Prince from the Purple Rain tour. My sister rented Madonna once, and we rented the Purple Rain movie. But it was really exciting to rent movies, to walk through the video store, find movies that you could rent, take them home and watch. And a lot of those times, those movies we hadn't seen yet, we hadn't been to the theater for everything. So to take it home and watch it and see it for the first time was just really an experience in itself. You just don't see that stuff anymore. Slowly after time, the video stores were closing up when the internet started, where you could start streaming and doing that. So, but back in the 80s, there was no watching movies on the internet, no buying movies over the internet, no streaming. One thing that our way of streaming was there was a way that we could actually record VHS tapes to a blank tape. There was a way we would put like tape over a certain part of the VHS tape that we rented, and we would have to, of course, have our own VHS player, and we'd have to rent one from the video store. There was a plug that you'd plug into both of them, but the original tape you'd put like some tape over a certain part of it. I'm trying to remember, and then you would record onto the blank VHS tape, and there you go. You'd have your movies, and of course, it was wrong to do, but we, didn't have a lot of money, so we would, if it was movies we wanted to watch over and over, we would record that stuff onto blank tapes. And so that was our way of streaming back then. And yeah, now you can, purchase things, or you can just go onto Netflix or what else is there? Hulu, whatever. There's like movies you can watch. Disney Channel, Disney Plus, you can watch movies there too. But um, I miss what I really miss too is the skating rink. I would go to the skating rink every weekend, just to meet girls and to see what movie or music the DJs were going to play, the DJ that they had. And I'd go there and request, music. And the music that I requested, that I always requested, um, trying to find the albums that I always requested. Got some different vinyls here to show you guys here a little bit. Oh, here we go. But anyway, so the vinyls I would always request to listen to at the skating rink was this one right here, Bon Jovi 7800 Degree Fahrenheit. Always wanted to hear Tokyo Road. And let's see here, In and Out of Love, Price of Love, Only Lonely, King of the Mountain, Silent Night. All that stuff I would request to have played. Well, they'd play some of it. They wouldn't play all of it because there's so many other songs they wanted to play and other requests they had from other kids. This was the other album I'd always request songs off of at the skating rink. These were albums that I didn't have in my collection yet or in my hands. I didn't have a vinyl player, later on in my teenage years, and I didn't have the cassettes yet. So I'd go to the skating rink and request music off of these. But Who Wants to Be Lonely, Tears Are Falling. Of course, they wouldn't play All Night, but I'd request that too, but they wouldn't play it just because of the lyrical content on it. But anyway, so I go to skating rink and request, songs off of these albums because they were just albums that I just wanted to have a possession of, but I didn't have yet. I just wanted those albums, but didn't have them yet. So the next best thing would be to go to the skating rink and have them play some of the songs off of those and hear it over the speakers at the skating rink. But just a really cool hangout, with all of us kids was the skating rink. They had nachos and corn dogs and all kinds of soda. They had all kinds of candy, cotton candy sometimes. They had, oh my gosh, regular hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, all kinds of stuff that you could eat at the skating rink. And I used to love Jolly Ranchers, the little Jolly Rancher hard candies. I would always buy those. I'd buy Laffy Taffy and crap like that, to eat throughout the night. But we were there to meet girls. We were there to listen to music and hopefully, get a girl to skate with us during one of the slow songs they were playing. So I miss the skating rinks and the arcades, going to the arcades and playing video games, having to use quarters to play these games. My gosh, that was another great memory. Me and my buddy Robert growing up, every weekend we would go to a place called Brothers Ice Cream back in Shadron. A doctor owned this place. They had all kinds of homemade ice creams. They had a big trough it was like for 6 people, but we would buy that for just us two. They had like 6 different flavors of ice cream, all the works, whipped cream, bananas, cherries, all the different toppings you wanted, sprinkles, nuts, whatever. And we would eat that by ourselves. And then we'd order cotton candy. They made cotton candy. Later they had pizza. But we'd go in the arcade and play a bunch of games. Tempest was my absolute favorite game to play. Galaga, I think Donkey Kong, Centipede, Frogger. Those were some of my favorite games to play. But Tempest was my absolute favorite in Galaga. It was kind of like Space Invaders. So those kind of games I really loved also. And then we'd go see the movie afterwards. We'd go see movies and, we'd do that. So, but I'm going to pop up a couple images here to show you guys, just to, show you guys an idea of certain things from the past. So let me get this up here. So here's an image here's an image that I found on the internet of arcades. So let's look at that. Well, let me try this again. I think I clicked on it too much. Let me see here. Let me try this again. Okay, here we go. So yeah, so right there is an image of the arcades. See if I can make that bigger for you guys. There we go. So anyway, there's an image of the arcades back in the 80s. You know, that's just one example. But there's Donkey Kong right there. There's Galaga back there. There's Centipede. And this looks like a real photo. I mean, I'm not seeing where any of this is AI, but this looks like the real deal here. Um, and let me see what else I can pop up for you guys here. Um, Well, just some memorable movies from the 80s that I got to go see at the theater. When I started getting to go to the theater, right here, um, Return of the Jedi. That was just that was like a movie that we just could not wait to go see. We actually hid underneath the seats. We went to the early show, then we hid underneath the seats, and we actually got away with that and watched the second movie that came out that night. Um, And then another great movie that we got to see that we, went to, um, was this one right here, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That was a movie we couldn't wait to go see that we got to go see in the theater. Um, and then another great movie that we got to go see that we absolutely loved was the Rocky 3 that had Hulk Hogan in it, Mr. T. So those were just some movies right there that we just really loved. That we couldn't wait to go see. Um, yeah, just exciting movies. But every week, me and my friend growing up, we would actually go out and do yard work for people. We did a lot of fishing, a lot of that kind of stuff throughout the week in the summertime. Weekends we would do some fishing depending on how cold it was. We'd do some ice fishing at times, but we would go do yard work. We would help people gosh, we'd help people with odd jobs around their houses just to make money to go buy fishing lures. In order to buy, to get certain things, we'd have to buy fishing magazines. There was little articles that you could send in coupons or write certain businesses, and they'd send you free fishing lures, to try. And all you had to pay was the shipping. But then we would end up buying fishing lures. We would go to Cabela's, which Cabela's at the time were very small little stores. But we would go to the old Cabela's and buy lures after we read about certain things. But we would just always try to find ways to make money to go buy fishing lures, to buy fishing magazines. We would sell night crawlers. We'd go out and catch minnows and streams. We'd sell those. And some of that money went towards, playing video games and going to Brothers Ice Cream to indulge in ice cream all night and pizza and cotton candy, and then we'd go to the movie theater and we'd buy crap there to eat. But we spent our allowance on the theater, and of course I was getting into music, so I was, buying cassettes. I was starting to buy cassettes. Um, had a few 8 tracks, and had some records. Was buying vinyls. So I was always trying to find ways to make money to buy vinyls and buy, cassettes and stuff like that as well. So at a young age, my parents didn't buy everything for me, like a lot of people do nowadays. A lot of parents out there. No, not trying to say anything bad about any parents, but kids back in the 80s when I was growing up, we had a lot more ambition to go work and make money on our own because we just felt proud to make things, to work for things, to buy things on our own, to call our own. My parents would buy me clothes, which there was a lot of clothes that I hated that my parents made me wear to school. If you watch the movie from Kiss, uh, Detroit Rock City, you got to watch that movie. But there's a scene in there where this mother makes her kid wear these god awful clothes, and he got made fun of at school, and he was one of the kids in the movie that, along with a couple other kids that were trying to get to a Kiss concert back in 1977. But anyway, so that reminded me of the clothes that I kind of had to wear growing up that my mom would make me wear at times. So just, I always wanted later, as I turned 16, I'd go wash dishes so I could buy my own clothes, buy the things I wanted, saved up for a car so I could go cruising with all the girls and with my buddies. And so, cruise nights, that was a big thing back in the 80's, going around cruising around every weekend. In the summertime, we would do it throughout the weekend on the weekends. But cruising around on the weekends, stopping in empty parking lots, maybe after businesses had closed, we'd all gather there and listen to our music together through our car stereos. We would blast our stereos to see who had the loudest stereos. I remember paying for my first car stereo. It was a 1500 watt speakers on the doors. I think I had 1000 watt speakers on the back, something like that. I had a power booster. First cassette I bought for that was the Molly Crew Girls, Girls, Girls. But we would blast our stereos to see who had the loudest stereos. And I think my stereo was probably worth more than what my car was. I bought an old Mercury Monarch from an elderly guy. I think I paid $900 or $1,000 for it. But I saved up for a whole year to buy this car so I could go cruise around, so I could even go to some concerts. It was just such a different time back then. We couldn't find out about concerts through the internet, or you couldn't get on the internet and buy tickets. You had to actually call the arena, the box office, and wait and wait and wait and wait on the phone, which sometimes costed our parents long distance fees for long distance calls. So I'd always hear about that from my parents, but I'd have to see if there was any 800 numbers or anything like that. If there was any charges, I'd have to pay my parents back for being on the phone. But you'd have to wait on the phone until someone answered, and then they'd have to explain to you what tickets were left and kind of what the stadium was going to look like back then. They'd try to explain it the best they could. You can't get on the internet and see your seat and see what the stadium was going to look like from there. You had to you had to again wait your turn to get your call answered, and you had to just let them explain to you where the seats were and what it might look like in the arena. So yeah, so that was something different back then too that we had to do to go see concerts. But word of mouth was a big thing. You'd hear kids talk about a concert they were going to go to in school, or in the school, and they would find out through somebody else that saw a flyer hanging up on a business somewhere. Maybe it was one of their friends in the area where there was an arena, where they'd call them and say, "Hey, this band's coming. Do you think you'd want to come?" I'd hear them over talking this stuff, and of course I just bought a car, so my ticket to these shows was I'd made a deal with these kids. You buy me a ticket, you pay for my gas, I'll take you to the show. Because some of these kids didn't have cars, and if they did, sometimes their parents would drive them to these concerts. Which sometimes I snuck my car off. I kind of fid my parents, let them know I was taking my car to a friend's house and they were going to drive to the show, which wasn't always true. That's a story in itself for another time, maybe. But I would make deals with these kids. You buy me the ticket, you buy me the gas, um, I will take you to the concert. So that's what I did a lot of the time. I had kids that would buy me a ticket, pay me for gas money, and I would take them to the concert. And then I got to go to the concert also. I got my gas paid for. But it paid off for them because they didn't have a car. So, and they worked, and they had a little money they could give me, and buy me my ticket. So anyway, or they'd hand me the cash so I could order my own ticket, whatever. But so anyway, so another thing that was just so different back then. But cruise nights, that was just such a big thing. Cruising around, picking up girls to drive around your car. And my car also, I forgot to mention, was a convertible. So I'd always, put the top down in the summertime and blare my stereo. And I just thought I was the coolest. Had girls in my car. I just thought I was the coolest, But working, washing dishes almost every night after school, saving my money for gas money, to take girls out and everything. But show you a little picture here of cruise nights, an example of cruises, the way we cruised around. So here's just a picture right here. There's a picture of a bunch of kids crammed into a car, so um, Yeah, those were just great times. We would cruise around out the country. We would get someone to buy us beer and schnapps. We'd always have different kinds of schnapps in our trunk, in a cooler. We would all drink different kinds of schnapps, trade bottles back and forth, try all these different schnapps. Had a girl throw up peach schnapps in my back seat. Couldn't stand anything with peach for a lot of years after that. And but wow, those were some great nights too, cruising around on back roads and drinking schnapps and beer that we'd have someone buy for us. Um, so yeah, and then going to concerts. Uh, pop up another picture for you guys here. Just the pre uh, concerts tailgating that we did. Um, I'm hoping all these pictures are coming through for you guys. I really do. I'm gonna not be happy if none of these pictures came through on this podcast here, but just hanging out in the parking lot with kids and just talking about the excitement of getting to see the show. And if we got to meet the band members at the hotel before we got to the arena, we would sometimes get some beer, be able to sneak some beer on the parking lot. I never did smoke or anything like that, never got into that, but never got into drugs. But if there was a beer or something around, I would definitely participate in that. Which, by the way, I got some rum with me today, so cheers to you guys. But yeah, just so many things back then that you just don't see anymore. Um, People back then, and it's so true, there was no cell phones, so you didn't have kids walking around hallways with cell phones, looking at their cell phones. Back then, there was no entertainment but ourselves. We would engage with each other more, talk with each other, hang out with each other, talk about music, talk about sports, talk about our favorite sports teams, our favorite bands, talk about what we're going to do over the weekend. We engaged a lot more with each other because there just wasn't that kind of thing. And, I can kind of relate to the 80s with my work now that I do. I work for a place called Clean Harbors. It's a place that destroys waste. And we're not allowed to have cell phones on with us while we work because we're driving forklifts and we're dealing with a lot of dangerous stuff. So we cannot have cell phones on us. The only time we have cell phones on us is during our breaks. So there's a certain room we can go into for our lunches, and we can be on our cell phones in there. So a little example: while we're all working with each other, we have no cell phones, so we're engaging with each other. We're joking around with each other. We're teasing each other, giving each other a hard time, busting each other's balls about things, actually engaging with each other. But as soon as everyone steps into that room for lunches, everyone's on their cell phones. No one talks to each other hardly. Everyone's so, into their cell phones, which I admit I do the same. I get on and, message my wife and, talk to her, but everyone's on their cell phones and there's hardly any talking during that lunch break. We get like a half hour and we get like a couple other breaks throughout the day, but no one talks to each other hardly during this time because everyone's on their cell phones. And that was a conversation that came up in our lunch area, our lunch room, and at the time, it just kind of reminded us of the fact that when we're out there on the floor working, we're engaging just like what we did back in the 80s in school with each other. There was no cell phone, so we had each other. We only had each other to entertain and talk with and talk about concerts that were coming up, whatever was going on in the news, things that we found out that was going on with the president. Maybe a president got shot. I remember when Ronald Reagan got shot, and they had the TV going on in the room, just with that news, and we talk about that stuff, and to read books and look up information for homework. Our encyclopedias we had to really depend on in our library to bring home. My parents ended up buying a encyclopedia set. So we had to use encyclopedias to look up, things that were going on in the world, things like with history and science. And we had to, look up those things. We had to look up through index cards that were in the library. We had to look up subjects and find out what books had those subjects and study. We couldn't just get on the internet and look, for that kind of stuff. Things were so different back then, guys. I mean, um, you know, as a kid growing up, there was no, the Atari came out, and I'm trying to remember the other system that came out. But there was the Atari and there was another system that came out. I cannot oh, Activision. You know, that was how we, after the video game arcades came out, then this stuff started coming out. We would buy video games, save our money for video games even, and we get together and play these games. And they were so basic, but they were so much fun. And then later on, when PlayStation came out, actually the last of the best video games I think was with the Super Nintendo. They were still basic and a lot of fun to play. The graphics weren't extreme, but then when PlayStation came out, graphics started getting more extreme, more extreme. It just made it more not as fun for me to play. But we would save our money for video games growing up, and we would get together with our friends and have, we'd stay the night with each other at each other's houses, and we'd stay throughout the night and eat popcorn and drink soda and play video games. But then we'd stop playing video games. We'd go play Monopoly all night. We'd play all kinds of board games. I remember on weekends with my friends, or with my buddy Robert, on Sundays, we would listen to the top 40 with Casey Kasem. And we would play Trivial Pursuit all day. And those were just such fun times. You just don't see the stuff anymore because people are so into watching, being on their cell phones, the internet, which again, guys, I'm guilty of all this myself. I've, partaken of all this. I agree. But if all this got taken away right now, I think a lot of people would be in panic mode. I think a lot of people would probably just die from not having the technology anymore if something ever happened. I think people would just totally freak out and not know what to do. And I'd be one of them, guys. I really think because all my phone numbers are in my phone, I need to really have my phone numbers written on something else. So if my phone ever goes down, I got phone numbers still, which I'm going to do that, I think. But and I don't think we'd all be as broke as we are, and I don't think we would be, throughout our life spending money the way we've spent if it wasn't for being able to buy things so easily on the internet. I mean, you got eBay, which I've, guilty of buying a lot of music on eBay. I don't think if there was eBay and all that, there'd be more businesses around. So many businesses have gone out of business because they can't compete with the internet sales. Man, I tell you what, there's so many restaurants I miss too, like A&W. I miss that kind of stuff too, also growing up. But kind of back to music. Me and my buddy Ross at the time made a pact that we would not listen to anything but Kiss. But and that was in 1977. As time went on, my buddy was the first one to start listening to other bands, and then I kind of started getting interested in other bands too. But some of the first bands that I saw, um, let's see here. Some of the first bands that I saw outside of Kiss that just blew me away, just the imagery, was this right here. Quiet Riot, which this is the 40th anniversary of this album this year, or the third. Let's see, 30th anniversary. See, God, I'm trying to think here, guys. I believe it's the 40th anniversary. Not of this album, but yeah. So this is the 43rd. This year would be the 43rd anniversary of this album. But I saw this on a shirt. A kid in school that got to go see this concert, and then I saw this on a shirt with a kid that got to go see Iron Maiden. This imagery right here caused me to want to get to know what else was out there to listen to besides Kiss. That got my interest. Black Sabbath and Ozzy I discovered later, which I did bring those albums. I'm not going to pause this and go get those, but Ozzy and Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest. I started seeing this imagery on kids' T-shirts. Maybe their parents took them to these concerts. I was like, whoa, this outside of Kiss, I thought Kiss had some really cool imagery on their albums, but then I'm discovering these other bands with this imagery. And then, of course, I discovered Journey through the library that I'd go to and find books to read. they had a record player. They had records you could listen to. I caught on to this. I just loved the album cover. It caught my attention, and I saw the back where these guys had long hair and everything, and I thought this is worth giving a listen to. And I fell addicted. I fell in love and got addicted to this album. I'd go to the library almost every day after school and play this while I was reading books at the library back in Shatter, Nebraska, growing up. So this is what got me into Journey. And then, of course, um, I discovered this album next, Frontiers, through MTV. There's the back of it right there. And then after discovering that, I discovered Journey Escape. I discovered this one before I discovered this one. This came out before Frontiers, but another great album. Heard that through a friend growing up, this album. And there was even a video game I found when I was with my youth group. We went to Denver to go to Lakeside, I believe, amusement park, and then we went to this mall, and then we went to this place where they had like an underground um out or vinyl shop, and they had like pictures from concerts that people had sold them that we'd look at, and they had vinyls, and they had video games. I saw the video game to this Journey Escape, so I bought it. I think I paid like $5 for that video game at the time. It was compatible with my Atari system at the time, so I bought it and played it. It was so cool, and I wish I had that still. But so once I bought that video game, I love the video game so much. I finally decided to go back and find the cassette of this, and I bought it. And so yeah, so Journey became I became a huge fan of Journey. And then of course um, discovered Twisted Sister right there, one of my favorite albums, Twisted Sister. But I discovered these guys. We started getting MTV. That was like big. 24 hours music videos. The first videos I saw on MTV was Def Leppard, Bringing on the Heartbreak. Saw a lot of new wave stuff, Flock of Seagulls, Missing Persons, which are some of my absolute favorite bands. Duran Duran. Girls on Film was the first video I saw on MTV that was pretty controversial at the time. Um, yeah, then speaking of Arlo Speedwagon earlier, really ended up liking the music off of this, High Infidelity, Don't Let Them Go, Keep on Loving You. Saw that video on MTV and like, oh my God, that's a great song. Had to find this cassette, so I bought that. So I found these cassettes through the music clubs. You RCA, there was RCA, and I forget what the other music club was, but I taught my mom to let me order cassettes. You would get so many cassettes. You'd get like 10 or 12 cassettes for a penny, and then you had to buy another cassette. You could buy another cassette at half price, so you'd buy that. And if you bought that, you got one more free cassette. And then once you did that, then you had to fulfill their agreement that you'd buy like two or three cassettes at regular price. And then once you did that, then you got more deals on cassettes. So, of course, I did, and I did that. And I paid my mom back, from doing odd jobs. But the first band I really remember when we first got MTV back in Shatter, Nebraska, when I was a kid, the first video I saw was Looks That Kill that came off of this album, Shout the Devil. I just remember seeing that on MTV at my grandma's house. And my grandma was watching Lawrence Welk. And she went to the kitchen to do something, and she came back out, and I turned the channel when she was in the kitchen because I could not stand Lawrence Welk or Hee Haw. It was, that was another thing that was always on. I could not stand those shows, and there was times I'd opt out going over to my grandma's house with my mom because I just couldn't stand having to sit there and watch these shows. But my grandma was in the kitchen, and I turned it, and I found out at that moment that we had MTV now. I didn't know what MTV was, but I saw this music video playing, and then the advertisement was coming on after that. But remember watching Looks That Kill. My grandma walked back out of the kitchen, and she saw that video with how they looked and the way that music sounded. And she just started shaking. It took her by total surprise. I thought she was going to have a heart attack at the time, so I turned the channel back to where it was. But another cassette that I ended up getting in my record club, which was by accident, was Invasion of Your Privacy. great album. Lay It Down was the video I saw on that first, and I just fell in love with that video. This is absolutely one of my absolute favorite albums from the 80's. Um, and let's see here. Um, and then the first, of course, the first band that I ever got to go see for concerts was Stryper, one of my absolute favorite bands. Really started loving Stryper way before I got to see him in concert. But my very first show was Stryper in Denver, Colorado. It was in January of 1987. This album came out in 1986, but January of 1987, got to see him in Denver, Colorado with the youth group that I had joined just so I could go see these guys. And then I quit the youth group afterwards. But wanted to see Stryper so bad, I had no way to get there to see him in Denver. So I joined this youth group. I heard these kids discussing that their youth group was going to go see Stryper. So of course I joined the youth group, not mentioning that I was joining just so I could go see these guys. They even mentioned I was a fan of Stryper. So they ended up telling me after I joined that they were going to go see a concert. I had to get permission from my parents to go. And I'm like laughing to myself because that was the only reason why I joined the youth group, because I overheard them talking about it. But there's the original album cover that first came out. And then, of course, that's what they looked like back then. So my first concert was Stryper at the Paramount Theater in Denver, Colorado. I'll never forget going into that theater, seeing chandeliers in the ceiling, seeing the red carpet, seeing kids all over the place, getting to buy my merchandise, my poster, my shirt, and getting to see a band for the first time, getting to shake their hand. Actually, found my way to the front of the stage, got to shake their hand, and I told myself I was going to work with them, and I did. I got to work with them in 1990 during their Against the Law tour. And I've been friends with these guys over the years. I get to go anytime I go see them in Denver, Colorado, or wherever they're at. I get to hang out with them a little bit. And I actually got to let my brother actually got to hang out with them with me over in Sheridan, Wyoming back in 2014. So that was great that I got to take him backstage. We actually got to hang out Lita Ford a little bit as well. So I was really glad to see my brother getting to experience this because I remember what it was like for me to get to be around bands for the first time. Of course, I got into the music business for a little while just so I could be around bands and be around that. And I was hoping it would be a long term, career for me. My life took a turn, with some things that it just didn't happen. But I've always stayed involved. These podcasts are a big part of me staying involved in the music business. I still get to stay in touch with certain artists. I just had Perry Richardson on my channel. That's been the bass player for Stryper for a while now. He was with Firehouse back in the 80's. But Stryper first show I ever got to see. Um, so first concert I ever got to see. Give you a little bit of an image here of what that kind of looked like for me when I got to see Stryper for the first time. Well, I lost that image somehow. I don't see it anywhere. Um, oh, here we go. Here we go. Here it is. And there's a bigger picture. So there's Stryper from 1987 when they started really touring the Tale of the Devil album. That's what I got to witness right there. So just that was a great memory. And then my first concert at an arena was in 1987, same year, but later on in the year. I saw Stryper in January of 87. So my first concert that I got to see in an arena was Great White and Whitesnake. And so there's Great White from 1987. First arena show. The album that they were touring at the time was um, Once Bitten, I believe was the name of that album. Had Rock Me, Lady Red Light, Save Your Love. So that's Great White. And then I got to see, so they were the opening band for Whitesnake. And then, of course, there's an image of Whitesnake coming up here, right here. I really hope these pictures are coming through, guys. But anyway, so Whitesnake right there from 1987. So that was my first arena show. Got to actually meet Vivian Campbell right here. Got to actually meet him at the Hilton Inn in Casper, Wyoming, before the show. Got to meet him. I've met so many other great artists and performers and musicians at the Casper Event Center in Casper back in those days. Got to meet Cinderella, which when Cinderella first came out, I saw them on Headbangers Ball, and I'll wait to show you that until I take this picture off, actually. But anyway, so yeah, so Whitesnake, the great Rudy Sarzo right there, and got to meet old Vivian Campbell and got to talk to him a little bit. But that was my first arena show in Casper, Wyoming. Great White and Whitesnake. I'll never forget going into. We waited all day in line. That was just really cool in itself. Talking to kids all day about the show and other things. And then getting into the arena and rushing to that stage to get in the very front and to be right up close to the band, and then getting to just seeing all the thousands of people there to see the same band, everyone being there for the same purpose as you. It was just, and then everyone singing together and raising their fists in the air at the same time and dancing around, jumping around, and even people pushing each other to fight to get to the front. Just waves of people going back and forth trying to get to the front. It was quite the experience. And then after the show was over, going rushing to that merchandise booth to get whatever merchandise you could get before they sold out of it. It was just quite the time, but yeah, I discovered Cinderella, on Headbangers Ball. Discovered so many bands on Headbangers Ball, but this I discovered on Headbangers Ball, Cinderella, with the song "Shake Me." The song "Shake Me" and "Nobody's Fool," which is my favorite video from this. And just seeing that imagery just really started getting me into going further into other bands out there. I really started loving that glam look, which Kiss was kind of glammy in some ways. Alice Cooper was kind of glammy. Um, so I really started getting into that glam look. And me, myself, I started growing my hair out, teasing my hair, especially in 1990 when I got out of my own, living in Florida, getting involved in the music business. I started really growing my hair out, teasing it, even wore black eyeliner at times, maybe wore some black fingernail polish at times, wore the tightest jeans I could wear, had some boots that were like a faux leather, but it was like snake skin. So I like the snakeskin boots. I weren't real leather; it was more faux leather. But I wore those with my tightest jeans I could find. Wore my heavy metal shirts, grew my hair out, teased my hair. Would even wear black eyeliner at times. Sometimes wore black fingernail polish. Maybe put on a little bit of some makeup. Nothing heavy, but just once in a while I did that kind of stuff. When we were going out to clubs, when we were going to like a heavy metal club, and my gosh, the girls we would meet and the bands we got to see, like local bands we got to see, and my gosh, guys, there's so much stuff that went on in the 80's. I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but I just hope I'm giving you a good taste of what the 80's was like. But MTV was huge. I would, wash dishes on the weekends. On Saturday nights, I'd go home and I'd pop up MTV, Um, so there's MTV right there, the logo for MTV. I'd watch MTV. Whenever chance I had, I'd watch MTV on the weekends after school. We couldn't wait to hear about a premiere video that was going to come out, and we would rush home to wait for that video to come on. And so we would always watch, MTV, looking for all the new videos. We couldn't wait for them to say a premiere video was coming up, whether it was all Hall and Oates or Prince or whoever it was. We were always excited to see what the newest video was going to be. And then Headbangers Ball started really coming on MTV every Saturday night. Headbangers Ball. Let's see here. Gotta get this going here. Oh, let's see here. I got a hit. No, I sorry guys, I messed up. Um, Oh, let's see here. Something's happened with my screen. Not sure what happened here. Um, well, heck. Well, I kind of screwed up my setup here, but Headbangers Ball. So I guess that's gonna be it from all my images. But anyway, yeah, Headbangers Ball was a big thing. Um, Trying to see if I lost it to another file here somewhere. Let's see here. Maybe I can find it still here. Oh, here we go. Let's see here. Um, Actually, maybe I need to do this. Sorry, guys. I gotta see what else I can do here. Oh, here we go. I was hitting the wrong buttons. But so hopefully it's here still. Maybe not. Maybe I lost it. Ah, I think I lost it actually, but that's okay. Um, I wanted to show you guys the image of Headbangers Ball, but you know what? I'll just look it up on my phone and show you guys that image. Um, but yeah, Headbangers Ball. That's where I discovered a lot of the groups that I really started really liking. Um, I think I actually got that image on my phone here. Let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. So here's a image of Headbangers Ball right here. So Headbangers Ball every Saturday night. I would miss the first hour of it, but I'd get home from washing dishes and I would watch Headbangers Ball the last 2 hours. It was like 3 hours. I'd watch the last 2 hours and discover videos of bands that I had not heard yet. And that's how I discovered also Skid Row. They had their video on there, which was 18 in Life. Well, I'm sorry, Youth Gone Wild was the first video, and then they had 18 in Life and I Remember You. But that video, Youth Gone Wild, I'll never forget that video. And of course, after I heard these bands, I'd have to rush out and try and find these albums. Um, of course, I'd already known about rap, but I found out about this album coming out through the videos, on Headbangers Ball, Dance, um, Body Talk. Um, I think those were the two biggest songs off that album. Um, and of course, then I fell in love with Heart when I saw these guys on MTV. Of course, I knew about them in the 70s with Barracuda. But What About Love? These Dreams were just terrific songs. Um, Trying to think if there's another one on here. What About Love Never? These Dreams were my God, the biggest songs, some of the greatest love metal, hard rock songs, whatever you want to call it. And those gals were just terrific looking. So of course, through them. I started getting to Lita Ford, Doral Pesh from Warlock. Really started like paying attention to the female rockers. I always liked Joan Jett. I was a big fan of Joan Jett, and started discovering who Lita Ford was. So Joan Jett and Lita Ford and Ann and Nancy Wilson from Heart. I started really paying attention to these female rockers at the time, but really wanted to bring this album up too. Poison open up and say ah. They had a song that came out that I saw in Headbangers Ball, and it was nothing but a good time. And in the video, it showed the guy struggling while he was washing dishes, getting chewed out by his boss for not being fast enough. And then, of course, he kind of kicks the door in the kitchen, and the door, I think, falls down in the video, and there's Poison on stage. I think nothing but a good time. And then at the end of the video, he's got all the dishes done. His boss comes in, his boss is happy, and the dishwasher, he's daydreaming, but the boss kind of lets it go because he's got all the dishes done and everything's looking clean and nice. But this was the story of my life, really, this album. Just always wanting to find a good party to go to, be with my friends, be with my girlfriends, being at parties, and just always, trying to get out of work and not trying to get out of work, but wanting to get out of work so I could go cruise around and go home and watch MTV, go to a party, whatever, and go hang out with all the kids and all the girls and guys that I knew. So yeah, so just so many great times in the 80's. We always had to find things to do to entertain ourselves. It's just, back then, we'd be up all night playing board games or, we would play some video games, of course, but a lot of board games and always working to make money so we go see whatever's at the theater coming up. And just some great movies that we got to see at the theater: Uncle Buck, Fletch, The Goonies, Gremlins, Gremlins 2. I saw Stripes on HBO, saw Caddyshack on HBO, but seeing the Rambo movies for the first time, my gosh, I didn't get to go see the. I think I did actually get to go see all three of these movies in the theater: First Blood, uh, Rambo, First Blood Part Two, Rambo 3. Those were just some of the most exciting movies that I saw in the theater. But, at a young age, parents worked. My mom was a stay-at-home mother, but she still wouldn't just pay for everything for us. Here's another great movie that I got to see growing up: Beverly Hills Cop in the theaters, E.T. Just so many visual experiences with going to see movies. King Kong was the first movie my parents took me to when I was around 7 years old, I believe. I'll never forget seeing that movie on the screen for the first time. But I tell you what, things were just so different back then. We would work to make allowance, to earn allowance, and we would go save our money. We'd save our money up for what we wanted. Our parents just didn't hand us everything we wanted. We had to work for it. And my parents were good, about things. My senior year in high school, my dad at the time, all throughout my school years, they made me do my homework first, and then I could go out if I wanted. But I had to be home at a certain time. I always, really honored my parents' wishes majority of the time. Um, Sometimes I would let my sister get home first because she was, out drinking, and she could not keep it hidden that she was out drinking. So she would get home first. I would watch her walk in, stumbling in the house. She would laugh about things and wake my parents up. And if she had been quiet, she might have gone to her room. But her bedroom was right in front of the house, right in the front part of the house when you walk in. Um, so she didn't really have a way to sneak in the house. So she had to go through the front door to get in, but she would always just be very loud at times and obnoxious, kind of. And she would always get caught every time. So I knew she was getting caught. And so when that was going on, my parents were in her bedroom. I would come in through the front door also, but be very quiet. I'd get down to my room, get into bed, get my lights out, get into bed. So my parents thought I'd been home already. Um, or I would unlock the back door, hoping my parents wouldn't check the back door. They would lock it, but then I would go behind their back and unlock it. And a lot of times I don't think they rechecked that door. They assumed that it was locked. And I would sneak in through the back door very quiet like. And my bedroom was downstairs after you got through the back door, stairs going to the basement. And I'd sneak through that back door at times too and get downstairs, get my lights out, get in bed immediately. So I let my sister kind of enter the house first before I did, and so she's the one that kind of got in trouble. A lot of times I got away with a lot. So just some fun things about the 80's also. But I tell you what, guys, I could go on and on about the 80's. It was just such a great time, such a fun time in my life. And that's what this channel's been all about, is recreating those memories from the 80's, maybe the 70's, 60's, 50's for some of you. Maybe it's all those eras for some of you, maybe. But for me, it was mainly half of the 70's, from 76, 75 to 76 on, all through the 80's, early 90's. Getting to work with music, being in the music business, got to work with a lot of great artists in the early 90's. It still felt like the 80's to me in the early 90's. Still felt like the 80's, even though some of the glam metal bands or hair metal bands were going out. They were still kind of around, putting out some new music that I got a hold of, and they were still playing in clubs. They weren't always playing arenas anymore, but they were playing somewhere in clubs or something. So we still would go get to see these great bands. And of course, I got to work with some really great artists. And so I was still, I still felt like I was in the 80's, even though the 90's were kind of hitting now. And of course, Nirvana was coming out, Pearl Jam was coming out, these grunge punk, grunge, whatever you want to call it, were coming out. And I didn't think anything of it, the fact that it was taking out my favorite bands at the time, but it was, and I didn't realize it until after I moved back, from Florida back to where I lived in Torrington, Wyoming. Um, and boy, I tell you what, I didn't realize that all my bands were going out, that they were getting kicked off their labels at the time. Had no idea, but I'm glad I got to be around some of these artists before this stuff happened and still get to experience some of the concerts, even though they were in some smaller area venues or whatever. But I just didn't realize at the time that, these newer bands, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, I'm trying to remember some of the other bands that were coming out, that were actually causing my bands that I really love to go get kicked off their labels and get dropped off their labels and all that. But the 80s was such a terrific time. Nothing like it. I'll never forget the 80s. It was just an awesome time in my life. And so many great memories. But again, that's what this channel is all about, is recreating great memories from our youth, through, the podcasts I do, through some of the shorts I do. I've been doing a lot of album battles, um, with, you know, AI. I've been using AI, of course, to recreate, bands from the 60s, 70s, 80s, doing battles, which I'm getting a lot of good responses from some of that, but doing some AI stuff to recreate, some of the stuff that went on in the 80s. And I've still got some more things coming, but I definitely want to keep up with the videos, or the podcasts I'm doing like this. I got more cigar content coming, guys. I promise you. I got more music podcasts coming. I promise you. There's things coming still, but I want to branch out and do some different videos just with music, nothing to do with cigars, but with, I just want to broaden my audience. I don't want everyone to have to join or not join because I do cigar stuff all the time, or do cigar and music stuff together. I'm gonna start doing, more podcasts without cigars as well, because I want to appeal to a broader audience. I want, if you're not into cigars, I want you to be able to still be a part of this channel and not have to witness me smoking cigars, or something like that. If you want to just listen to things about music, I want you to be able to come here and do that. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to broaden my audience a little bit, so you don't always have to witness cigar stuff. If you want to come on and witness just music stuff, you can do that. And there's a lot of you that will continue to want me to, do cigar and music, content together. And I am going to continue to do that because that's what I really love about, things I'm into that I love, that helps me bring back great memories of my past, is through the cigars and music. But some of you guys may not be into cigars, so so I'm going to be doing more music stuff, just music content for you guys out there that aren't into cigars. Um, but right now, I am growing my hair back out a little bit, as you guys might notice. I've lost 40 pounds since I left the managing business. I managed a grocery store, managed grocery stores for a while. Was in the whole grocery business where food was always a temptation. So I've gained a lot. I gained a lot of weight over the years, and now I've lost 40 pounds. I'm feeling younger. I've always felt young, but now I'm feeling even younger since I'm lighter on my feet, feeling good because of eating healthier, and I'm even started working out a little bit more at home. But I'm gonna grow my hair out a little bit. I haven't been able to do that for a lot of years because of managing. Always had to keep my hair very short, but now I don't have to with my new work. I can grow it out a little bit if I want. So I'm doing that. Giving myself another new look. You guys were used to me with a very long beard for a while. So since I don't have a beard anymore with my new work, I can't have that anymore because I'm having to wear respirators at times. But I'm able to grow my hair out if I want. So I'm going to do that a little bit. But guys, my gosh, there's so many things about the 80s that were just terrific. Such good times. And if you guys ever want to find out more about the 80s, you can always Google things about the 80s. But we really had to entertain ourselves a lot. We had to find things to entertain ourselves. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have, a lot of TV channels, or we didn't have a lot of that either. Not a lot of channels on TV. You had to, kind of pick and choose what you wanted to watch, because there wasn't a lot to choose from. But MTV was my biggest thing that I watched growing up, and HBO, because I always wanted to catch movies. that maybe we had been in the theaters I didn't get to see in the theater that I could now see on HBO. And Kiss Meets the Phantom, that's one of my biggest memories, seeing Kiss Meets the Phantom. Uh, Famous Kiss movie. It's very cheesy, of course, but getting to see Meatballs with Bill Murray, that was another movie I'll never forget seeing for the first time. There was a TV series on HBO called Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, I believe is what it's called. And I would love to find that series, but that was a series I watched on HBO all the time. And I saw Star Wars stuff on there, saw Star Trek movies, all kinds of stuff got to see on there. But we always had to find a way to entertain ourselves. We didn't have the internet, didn't have cell phones. We couldn't just get on the internet, or on our cell phones and watch, things. We can even watch football games on our cell phones. Couldn't do any of that. We had to actually wait and watch and hope to be able to watch your favorite team on TV if they chose to put that, team on the TV that weekend. But yeah, guys, 80's was quite the time. It really was. I don't think I've missed anything to share with you guys for images. I'm going to double check real quick here, make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, yeah, and this is something I wanted to bring up. Of course, me getting into music, I started studying, I started teaching myself how to play drums at a young age, got involved in garage bands. That was something else that I did. We would entertain people around our block through playing music in our garage. Me and guys, I played the drums. I had guys that played guitar and bass. Had a singer, and we sounded pretty good. I mean, we practiced and sang good, and we would entertain. We would choose to entertain people on our block through our music. Some of the older people on our block that didn't get to go to concerts, that didn't get to go out and watch bands, that maybe wanted to. We would be bold and brave and open up our garage. And luckily, my dad and my mom allowed us to do that in their garage. But we would do this. We would open up the garage and we would stand out in the street, and I mean, the guys that play guitar go out on the street and play guitar, do their guitar solos. I'd be in the garage on the outer part of the garage doing my drum stuff, and we would have people standing out on their porches watching us and clapping and cheering us on and stuff. It was just, stuff like that even was just so much fun. I just will never forget those memories, being in garage bands and getting to do that kind of stuff. But getting to see Kiss for the first time in 1987 as well. That was something I forgot to show you guys. Got to see Kiss on the during their Crazy Nights tour in Casper, Wyoming in 1987. Got to actually meet Eric Carr. I'll never forget seeing the videos for off the Crazy Nights album. Um, I'll never forget Reason to Live from that album. Um, and I'm trying to think. Trying to remember the other two songs that came out. Crazy, crazy, crazy nights. Um, Turn on the Night was the other one. That was the other song I really loved off of this album. But I'll never forget getting to see Kiss for the first time in 1980. I think it was either 87 or early 88 that I got to see Kiss on their Crazy Nights tour. First time getting to see Kiss. Getting to meet Eric Carr, the late Eric Carr that passed away from cancer back in '91. Rest in peace, Eric. Thanks for giving me your time when I was a kid. I remember being in the Hilton Inn again. All these kids were around Eric Carr, around Gene Simmons, and I just stood back and waited. And the kids left, and Eric Carr's getting ready to leave. I went up and said, "Hey, Eric, could I talk to you for a moment? I just wanted to meet you. I'm a huge fan of Kiss and you, and I've been teaching myself drums because of Peter, Chris, and you." And he took time, another half hour, to talk with me and hang out with me and talk to me and let me talk to him. And he just was so gracious, so sweet and nice. And he was in a three-piece suit, had a briefcase, had his hair back in a ponytail, sunglasses on. But he just gave me all of his time to let me talk to him and hang out. And so did Vivian Campbell from Whitesnake, that was with Dio previously. Yeah, just awesome, awesome guys, really awesome guys. I'll never forget that. I got to meet Gene Simmons briefly um, at the Hilton Inn. He was all decked out in black leather pants, shoes or boots, black leather trench coat, black sunglasses. His hair is back in a ponytail also. He had a black leather cap on. I'll never forget it. So just such great memories. Getting to meet Cinderella at the Hilton Inn, getting to go backstage with Angus Young and everybody in ACDC. That's a great story. Went to go see Angus Young or go see ACDC on their Blow Up Your Video tour, 1988. We got to meet Angus Young and Malcolm Young in the hotel, and then later their bus driver asked if we could take them to go to the post office so we could send out some reservations to hotels or something. We got backstage passes, got to go back and hang out with ACDC. Got to witness Angus Young and his wife do coke. I'll never forget that image in my mind. But we met so many groups, met Cinderella, met Ball Out Boys. Gosh, the list goes on to everyone we got to meet. You know, so many great artists that we got to meet growing up, going to the Hilton Inn and hanging out there before the shows. Man, guys, I tell you what, you know, and then just being small and young, we had to go outside and find things to do, ride our bikes, ride skateboards. That was the thing I always continue to do is ride skateboards, ride freestyle bikes with my friends. I also did, you know, newspaper routes. Did that to make money with a friend, so I had money to, you know, take money to concerts with and stuff to buy T-shirts and buy tour programs and stuff. So did that too. You know, even got on um, got on the paper routes. You know, and did that. You know, to make money. So did all kinds of stuff, guys. It was just such a different time. But anyway, guys, I hope I give you a good taste of what the 80's was like compared to now. And I'll just never forget, you know, being in school and outside of school, we really had each other to lean on and to entertain each other and to depend on to you know to do things with each other to you know to have fun in life and I still feel like I'm kind of in the 80's. I don't think I've ever left the 80's completely. I think I'm still a part of it. In my mind, I still feel young. Just everything I'm into is still based around the 80's, 70's as well. All the bands I listen to and, you know, different things that are still going on. Thank gosh, a lot of great groups going on. Lita Ford is one of them. Um, Never forget getting to meet Lita Ford and getting to see her back in 2014 in Sheridan, Wyoming during the Rock and Railroad Festival. Um, yeah, I got to meet uh, so many great bands that day. Guys from LA Guns, the gals from Vixen, Kip Winger. Of course, went there to hang out with Striper. My brother got to see them finally. Got to hang out Lita Ford and be around her for a little bit. We got to see Cheap Trick. So anyway, it's just a great time. That was like going back to the 80's completely again. Getting to see Kiss in '96 in Omaha, Nebraska on their reunion tour where they had their Love Gun outfits on. Which I'll be doing a lot of great stuff based around the reunion tour for Kiss from 1996, 97 on. When I start my Harper's Gar Lounge podcast back up in September. So anyway, got a lot of great things coming up. But yeah, I felt like a kid again when I went and saw Kiss in '96. And the gal I was seeing at the time wanted to go off and make out, like during the solo with Ace Frehley and during Peter Criss's drum solo. And of course, I told her, forget that. I've been waiting to see these guys in makeup since I was 7 years old. So I didn't do any of that. I was glued to my seat, glued to that show. So I felt like a kid again at that time. But anytime I go back and listen to, you know, my albums, my 33s, and holding those physical copies, I just feel like a kid again, you know, and it was just a time I'll never forget. And but anyway, guys, thank you for watching this. I'm gonna end this whole thing with I'm gonna show you guys a video, and then I'll come back. It's a little bit of a lengthy video. I think it might be 16 minutes. That's all about the 80's. So I'm doing this at the end so you guys can choose to stay around and watch this or not watch it. Maybe you'll come back later and watch it. But I wanted to show this to you guys because it's really a lot of the imagery and the discussion is really true about the 80's, and hopefully it'll give you any of you guys in the younger generation out there a good taste of what the 80's was like. Any of you guys that are around my age or maybe a little younger than me that got to experience the 80's, hopefully this will bring back a lot of great memories from you. But the skating rinks, the video game or the arcades, the uh, the tailgating before concerts, the bowling alleys. I mean, my gosh, there were just so many things. The drive-in theaters. Um, that was another thing, and I don't think I showed you guys a picture of that. But yeah, drive-in theaters was a big thing too. Another big thing in our lives was going to the drive-in, sitting on our cars, and getting to watch the movie, with our girlfriends, friends, whatever. Another big time in our life, getting to go see drive-ins. That was just a huge thing as well. So yeah, just really cool stuff, guys. 80's was just a time that I'll never forget, and I'll never forget it. Um, I want to hear from you guys if you grew up in the 80's or what you experienced in the 80's. I want to know all about it. I want to know what concerts you got to go to, where your biggest hangouts were, whether it was the bowling alley, the skating rink. Did you go cruise around a lot, and what was that like for you cruising around? And I want to know everything that you guys did growing up in the 80's, what you found to do to entertain yourselves and all that. So, but and just so many, I could go on about the toys and all the stuff that you could collect. I mean, just all the great stuff back then that you just don't see anymore as well. You guys let me know in the comments, but I'm gonna show you guys this video, and I'll come back on real quick and end this completely, and I'll let you guys go on with whatever you're doing. So, but I want to show you guys this video, and I think you guys will enjoy it, and I really think it's gonna be a lot of fun for you to listen to. I better get my share sound on here. So here we go. Here we go.
There is something about being a teenager in 1980s America that captures a particular moment in growing up. The mixtapes, the mall hangouts, the freedom of a world without constant connection. And if someone lived through those years,
I'm going to start this over, guys.
There is something about being a teenager in 1980s America that captures a particular moment in growing up. The mixtapes, the mall hangouts, the freedom of a world without constant connection. And if someone lived through those years, they know exactly what made that decade so unforgettable. This was a time when teenagers ruled the malls, MTV was reshaping music, and Friday nights meant something completely different than they do today. The Cold War still loomed, but for American teens, the biggest concerns were getting the car for Saturday night and whether that cute person in third period even knew they existed. This was the decade that gave us John Hughes movies, arcade showdowns, big hair, and a social landscape that required showing up in person. There were no text messages, no social media, no way to know what anyone was doing unless you called their house and asked whoever answered. Technology was changing, but slowly. Being a teenager meant navigating school, friendships, and first loves with nothing but landline phones and face-to-face conversation. Let's walk through what teenage life actually felt like during that iconic decade. Some of this might bring back memories. Some of it reveals just how different growing up was before the internet changed everything. Let's step into that world. High school in the 1980s was a world unto itself, with its own rules, hierarchies, and rituals. The building itself probably had not changed much since the 1960s. Lockers lined the hallways, and between classes, the corridors became rivers of students moving from one room to the next. There was no checking phones because there were no phones to check. Students actually looked at each other, talked to each other, noticed each other. The social groups were clearly defined and everyone knew where they fit. Jocks wore Letterman jackets and ruled the hallways. Preppies dressed in polo shirts with pop collars and topsiders. The burnouts gathered in the parking lot or behind the gym. New wave kids had asymmetrical haircuts and wore black. Band kids carried instrument cases. Drama kids were dramatic. These categories felt permanent, and crossing between them was rare and notable. Classrooms had chalkboards, not whiteboards. Teachers wrote assignments in chalk that left dust on their hands and clothes. Students took notes by hand in spiral notebooks. There were no laptops, no tablets, no typing anything. Handwriting mattered because everything from essays to notes passed in class required it. Speaking of passing notes, this was the primary form of communication during school hours. Folded pieces of paper with messages inside were passed from desk to desk, hoping the teacher would not intercept them. The anxiety of watching a note travel across the room was real. The school library had a card catalog, an actual cabinet with drawers full of index cards organizing every book. Research meant going through those cards, finding the right Dewey Decimal number, and locating the physical book on the shelf. There was no Google. Writing a research paper meant hours in the library with encyclopedias and books, taking notes on index cards, then typing the final paper on a typewriter. Mistakes required correction fluid or starting over. Gym class was mandatory and often dreaded. Climbing ropes hung from the ceiling. The presidential fitness test measured how many sit-ups and pull-ups students could do. Dodgeball was still legal and could be brutal. The locker room smelled exactly how one might imagine, and changing in front of classmates was just part of the experience. Getting to school varied by location and age. Freshmen and sophomores without licenses depended on the school bus, parents, or older friends. The yellow school bus was a social space of its own, with the cool kids claiming the back seats. For juniors and seniors who could drive, the student parking lot was a status display. American muscle cars, pickup trucks, and by the late 1980s, small Japanese imports filled the spaces. Having a car meant freedom, and that freedom defined teenage life. The mall was the undisputed center of teenage social life in America in the 1980s. On any given Friday or Saturday night, the local mall was packed with teenagers, not necessarily buying anything, just being there. Walking the corridors, seeing and being seen, hoping to run into someone interesting. Parents would drop teenagers off at the mall entrance with instructions to meet back in 3 hours. What happened in between was teenage social life at its purest. The food court was home base. Groups would claim tables and sit for hours, nursing a single soda or sharing a basket of fries. The food court offered choices that felt exotic at the time. Orange Julius, Sbarro Pizza, Chick-fil-A in some regions, and the ever-present McDonald's. Teenagers would make loops around the mall, passing by the same stores and the same groups of kids, each pass an opportunity for eye contact or conversation. Stores catered specifically to teenagers. Chess King and Merry-Go-Round sold the trendy clothes. Spencer Gifts was edgy with its black lights and novelty items. Sam Goody and Music Land sold records and cassettes. Walden Books and B. Dalton had the paperbacks. The department stores anchored each end of the mall, but teenagers rarely ventured into Sears or J.C. Penney unless dragged there by parents. The arcade was magnetic. Rows of video game cabinets glowed in dim light, and the sounds of explosions and electronic music blended together. Games like Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Galaga, and later Double Dragon and Street Fighter filled the floor. Teenagers would spend their allowance 1 quarter at a time, trying to get their initials on the high score screen. The arcade was dark and loud and felt slightly forbidden, which made it perfect. Before we continue with the music, fashion, and dating culture that defined these years, if you are enjoying this look back at how teenagers really lived and want to explore more decades and places, consider subscribing. There are so many more stories about how Americans grew up before the world we know today. Music was everything to 1980s teenagers, and MTV changed how they experienced it. The channel launched in 1981, and by the mid-1980s, it was essential viewing. Music videos made artists into visual icons. It was not enough to hear a song anymore. Teenagers needed to see the video, know the choreography, understand the aesthetic. Michael Jackson's Thriller was not just an album. It was a cultural event with a 14-minute video that premiered like a movie. The Walkman was revolutionary technology. The ability to take music anywhere, to create a personal soundtrack while walking to school or riding the bus, felt like science fiction made real. Teenagers saved up for a Walkman and then spent their money on cassette tapes. Making mixtapes was an art form. Recording songs off the radio required patience and timing. hitting the record button at exactly the right moment and stopping before the DJ talked over the ending. The music itself was diverse. Pop dominated with Madonna, Prince, and Michael Jackson at the top. Rock remained strong with Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, and Van Halen filling arenas. New Wave brought synthesizers and British bands like Duran Duran and Depeche Mode. Hip-hop was emerging from New York, with Run DMC and the Beastie Boys crossing over to mainstream audiences. Hair metal bands with their spandex and power ballads ruled the Sunset Strip. Whatever a teenager was into, there was a tribe that shared that taste. Concerts were major events. Seeing a favorite band live required buying tickets in person or by phone, often waiting in line for hours. There were no online sales, no pre-sales, no algorithms. Getting good seats meant dedication. The concert itself was experienced in the moment. No one held up phones to record. Everyone just watched and listened and felt it. Fashion in the 1980s was loud and unmistakable. The decade rejected the earth tones of the 1970s in favor of neon brights, bold patterns, and excess. Teenage girls teased their hair to impossible heights using Aquanet hairspray in quantities that probably damaged the ozone layer. Shoulder pads made everyone look broader. Leg warmers worn outside of dance class somehow became fashion. For guys, the look evolved throughout the decade. The early 1980s meant preppy styles with polo shirts, khakis, and boat shoes. By mid-decade, the Miami Vice influence brought pastels and linen blazers worn with t-shirts underneath. Hair got bigger for everyone. Mullets were acceptable. Actually, they were stylish. Business in the front, party in the back was a genuine philosophy. Jeans were crucial. Jordache, Guess, and Gloria Vanderbilt defined girls' denim. Levi's 501s were the go-to for guys. Acid wash denim appeared mid-decade and covered everything from jeans to jackets. Parachute pants had their moment. Members-only jackets were essential. Nike and Reebok fought for dominance on teenage feet with high tops as the preferred style. The different social groups had their own fashion codes. Preppies wore Izod and LL Bean. New Wave kids wore black and styled their hair with gel. Metalheads had band t-shirts and ripped jeans. Each outfit was a declaration of identity, a signal to others about what music you listened to and who your people were. Dating and social life operated by completely different rules before cell phones and social media. Asking someone out required courage because it had to happen in person or over the phone, and calling meant dialing their house and potentially talking to their parents first. The terror of asking if someone was home while their father asked who was calling cannot be overstated. Going out meant actually going somewhere together. Movies were the classic first date. The multiplex at the mall showed the latest releases. Footloose, The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off were not just movies, but cultural touchstones that defined the teenage experience. John Hughes understood teenagers in a way that felt almost supernatural, and his films gave teens in the 1980s a mirror to see themselves. Couples communicated through landline phones, stretching the cord as far as it would go for privacy, or tying up the family phone line for hours until parents demanded it back. There was no texting to say goodnight. Relationships required actual conversation. Breaking up had to happen face-to-face or over the phone. There was no ghosting because there was no way to simply stop responding to messages. Prom was enormous, a rite of passage that required weeks of preparation. Girls shopped for dresses, guys rented tuxedos, and everyone worried about who was going with whom. Promposals were not yet a thing. Asking someone to prom was nerve-wracking but simple. The night itself involved photographs in someone's backyard, dinner at a nice restaurant, the dance, and then often an all-night party, sanctioned by parents who preferred to know where everyone was. Part-time jobs were common for teenagers who wanted spending money. Fast food restaurants, grocery stores, movie theaters, and retail shops at the mall all employed high school students. Minimum wage was low, but so were expectations for teenage expenses. A job meant gas money, concert tickets, new clothes, and maybe saving for a car. The jobs themselves taught lessons about responsibility and dealing with the public that school could not provide. Summer meant freedom. 3 months without school, long days that stretched into warm evenings, and time that seemed endless. Teenagers with access to pools spent hours there. Others gathered at beaches, parks, or just in someone's backyard. Summer jobs were more intense, with more hours available. Lifeguarding was a coveted position. Cutting lawns paid well. Working at the local amusement park or summer camp was popular. The economy of the 1980s shaped teenage experience in subtle ways. The recession in the early 1980s hit families hard, and even as the economy recovered, not every family shared in the prosperity. Having money for extras depended on a family's circumstances. Some teenagers had everything handed to them. Others worked for everything they had. Those differences showed up in what people wore, the cars they drove, and where they could afford to go. The Cold War still provided an undercurrent of anxiety. Nuclear war remained a genuine fear. The day after, a television movie depicting nuclear apocalypse traumatized viewers when it aired in 1983. Teenagers grew up doing nuclear drills, crouching under desks as if that would help. The Soviet Union was the enemy, and the possibility of everything ending in nuclear fire was something teenagers carried with them even as they went about normal life. By the late 1980s, personal computers were appearing in some homes. The Commodore 64, Apple IIe, and eventually IBM PC compatibles offered games and basic computing. Oregon Trail was played in school computer labs. Some teenagers learned to program in BASIC. The internet existed in primitive form, and it was for universities and the military. The connected world that would reshape everything was still years away. Teenagers in the 1980s lived in the last era of true disconnection. What defined teenage life in the 1980s America was presence. Being somewhere meant being there completely. Friendships were built on time spent together, not messages exchanged. Missing a phone call meant missing it. Being out of touch was the default state. This created both limitations and freedom. Parents could not track their teenagers. Teenagers could not be reached once they left the house. Whatever happened out in the world stayed between those who were there. The decade had its challenges. Pressure to conform was intense. Bullying happened without documentation. AIDS emerged and created fear around sexuality. Drug awareness programs like Just Say No oversimplified complex issues. Not every teenager thrived, and those who did not fit in often struggled without the online communities that would later provide connection. But for many, these years held something golden. Friday nights at the mall with friends, Saturday afternoons at the arcade, Sunday dinners with family, passing notes in class, recording songs off the radio, driving around with no destination, just enjoying the freedom of the road. The 1980s teenager existed in a world that required initiative and courage for basic social interaction. Every friendship was built in person. Every relationship required showing up. Every experience was shared only with those who were present. There was no documenting life for an audience. There was just living it. For those who remember being young in that decade, the memories have a particular texture. The sound of a cassette tape rewinding, the feel of arcade buttons under fingers, the anticipation of the phone ringing and hoping it was the right person, the particular satisfaction of a perfect mixtape, a world that existed completely in the moment because there was no other way to exist. For those with memories of this remarkable era, there is always more history to explore.
Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. There are some things they touched on that I forgot to bring up. Yeah, I mean, we would, to record even music that we couldn't afford to buy at the time or didn't want to spend the money on. Um, if there was just, maybe we weren't sure if the whole album would be good, we would just record certain songs off the radio, and that was just in our boom boxes or our stereos at the time. We would buy blank tapes, put it in, and while the radio was playing, we'd hit record and record whatever songs we wanted. I mean, we didn't, the only thing that sucked is, at the end of the song, whoever was talking on the radio would start talking before the song ended. So you would have that interruption in the end, or in the beginning, maybe too. But, we were able to get songs we wanted, through that way too, without having to pay for it. Just like recording movies, we'd get we'd have two VHS players. There was a certain cord that we would buy that we'd plug into each one, and you could tape up the original, tape the original. I think it was either the original tape or the blank tape. I think it was actually the blank tape. We'd have to tape a certain way, and it would actually record that movie onto it. And we'd record music off of the radio, with blank cassette tapes. So the other thing I forgot about is, there was no texting back in those days during school. No phones to text with. You had to pass notes to each other and just hope that you didn't get caught, just like they discussed. I remember those times passing a note to somebody and hope that they would get it before the teacher saw, and hope that that person wouldn't pass that note on to somebody else so they knew what you had said in it. Um, and then breaking up with somebody, if you were dating somebody and breaking up, you had to do it face to face or over the phone. That was so true. You couldn't just avoid that person because you'd see him in school or something. So you had to explain to him why you didn't want to see him anymore, and you had to do that in person if you didn't do it over the phone. So, but yeah, they finally discussed the metalheads. They discussed how people dressed, that were in new wave. But there was the preps, there were the burnouts, the kids that hung out on the corner smoking cigarettes, and then or maybe other things. And then you had the metalheads that came to school with their metal T-shirts on, their long hair, whether it was mullets or just full teased hair, But yeah, the hairstyles. I mean, the guys and the girls both tease their hair to the max, and record stores, bookstores where we bought physical copies of everything, couldn't stream or anything like that. So yeah, just all that stuff. I'm glad they brought some of that stuff up, and I forgot about the hangouts, at the malls. Yeah, that was a big thing for us growing up, was hanging out in the mall, meeting other kids. We'd go to malls in Rapid City, like areas that were in our own town. We would, because where I lived, there wasn't a mall. We had to drive 45 minutes or an hour to get to a mall. But just hanging out in the malls, going to the record stores, the bookstores, the clothing stores. I mean, it was just unreal. All the different things that you could go walk and check out. And we didn't always have the money for all that, but we were mainly there to check out the chicks, to meet other kids that we didn't know, especially the girls. So yeah, just a lot of great things with those hangouts as well. The bowling alleys, the drive-ins, all that stuff. So much fun. And the bowling alley growing up, they had a lot of arcade games and so much great food. We would bowl and play video games and eat, drink all kinds of soda all night. It was just such great times. And the sad thing about when the 80's ended, there was people that just didn't know anything else. When things got taken away that weren't a part of the 80's anymore, there were people that took their lives, and depression became a big part of things because they were so used to how great things were in the 80's, and then things were disappearing and leaving, and people just didn't know how to handle that. And a lot of people end up through drugs and alcohol, ended up ending their lives by accident or on purpose. So very sad. But I wanted to, they brought up Michael Jackson, and yeah, I'll never forget the Michael Jackson videos and Michael Jackson coming onto the scene with this album. That was a big part of the 80's, was this album right here. And Prince coming up with his first movie, Purple Rain, kind of psychedelic kind of style movie, but the soundtrack was terrific. The movie was terrific. That was a big part of the 80's, was Purple Rain. Prince from 1999 singing Little Red Corvette, 1999. And then Purple Rain, the whole soundtrack is just terrific. I mean, my gosh. And then, of course, Michael Jackson with Thriller. And then Stevie Nicks was huge. I loved, that was another female rocker I just fell in love with. Still in love with to this day is Stevie Nicks. Just some other great music from the 80's. Stevie Nicks was, of course, a part of the Fleetwood Mac, which Fleetwood Mac had a lot of great stuff throughout the 80s as well. Um, my gosh, guys, I hope I've touched on a lot of stuff today. I hope you've enjoyed this. This is just a great way for me to kind of tap on the 80s. And I know I took you guys through a roller coaster ride of events and things that went on through the 80s, but man, just such a great time in my life. So many events that I'll never forget. I want to know in the comments, guys, if you experienced the 80s and if you did, what experiences you had, whether it was with concerts, your hangouts, cruise nights, uh, concert, pre-concert tailgating stuff in the parking lot. Um, Guys, let me know everything you experienced in the 80s and what you think about the 80s and what you miss about it and what you love and hated about it, maybe even. But anyway, guys, this is Troy Harper from Harper Cigar Lounge. I'm not going to take up any more time of your time. I've taken up plenty. I won't be offended if you have to stop and come back and watch, some of this here and there until you watch it, because I know this was kind of a long video or a long podcast today. But guys, I appreciate you so much. I hope this has been enjoyable for you. And all of you guys that are close to my age, around my age, I hope this brought back some great memories from you. All of you younger generation, I hope this will give you a taste of what we got to experience in the 80s. There'll never be another era like it. I know some people claim the 60s was the best. Some people claim the 70s was the best. But I definitely feel the 80s was the best era ever. And I'm glad I got to be a part of that. I'm glad I survived it. I drank a lot, partied a lot. Some of my friends didn't survive. I survived, thank gosh. Glad I survived the 80s, but it was a great time. It was a roller coaster ride every day, every night. And it just wasn't always great times. There were some dark times too in the 80s, things we had to deal with. The fear of nuclear war definitely was a big thing in the 80s, doing a lot of drills and stuff for that kind of thing. I remember, and having to watch things on the news, things that happened to our presidents, all the tragic stuff that were going on around us in the world that just really was scary. Um, and of course, no phones, no way of communicating with your family. If they couldn't communicate with you, you couldn't communicate with them if you weren't close to a phone. There were pay phones you had to go to, but of course you had to pay for that. So you have to use pay phones at times, hoping to get through to your family if something happened to you. But I can't imagine what it was like for our parents to not know where we were when we left the house and not know what we were doing. I can relate to that experience with my own son. There was a time, where there were some things going on with my son, and I didn't, get a chance to talk to him or see him at times, and always was worried, that he was okay or not. So as a dad, I understand. So, but anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this. And again, I'm one that survived the 80s, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I been left with so many great memories. And of course, growing up, it was rough at home. My dad was rough on us a lot of the time. And I'm glad I had all these excesses to fall back on to get me through the tough times. Being at home was not a pleasant place to be growing up. I always wanted to be out of the house. So that's why I attended so many concerts, attended so many parties, was always out doing things to get away from it. And I'm just glad there was those things for me to be able to be a part of, to get out of the house and not have to be at home with certain things that went on at home. So anyway, it was just rough growing up. And I'm glad there was these places I could go hang out at and be a part of and be with my friends and go hang out and go do things outside of the home. But anyway, guys, I love you guys. God bless you. Thanks for following me. Thanks for being a part of all this. I appreciate you guys so much. And again, if you're new to this channel, subscribe today, hit that like, leave your questions, comments, and feedback, share this content with everybody you know. Hit that bell below to get all the latest content and updates on this channel. And I hope you guys really enjoyed this time with me. This is a video that I've wanted to do for a long time, a podcast I've wanted to do for a long time. And I hate to say it, but drinking and was a big part of my growing up. Drinking alcohol, going to senior parties, skipping work at times, skipping senior class. The last class at school to go to some party somewhere. So I'm glad I survived the 80s because, like I said, some of my friends didn't. They indulged in certain things too much, and it caught up to them. I'm glad I'm still around to be able to tell my story So again, I survived the 80s. I'm glad for it. And I'm glad I could be here to tell my story a little bit. There were nights, where we drove out town. We drove, to Denver, Colorado, drank all the way up and back. And, I'm glad nothing happened to us when we went to go see concerts. Def Leppard was the big one we went to during the Hysteria tour with Tesla opening. Uh, Went to go see them in Denver where they did the Pour Some Sugar on Me video, the Armageddon video from the Hysteria album, did the home DVD, concert DVD video. We got to be a part of all that, and we barely made it because of our drinking that day. Had some accident, had an accident with our car and, blown tire and had to get help. We couldn't call anybody because we had no phones. Had to hope that someone would stop and help us, which someone finally did. We just barely got to that show. And then, of course, after the show, we continued to drink and sleep in our car in the parking lot overnight, which they don't allow that at concerts anymore. You can't stay in the parking lots all night. You got to leave at a certain time. But we stay in the parking lots, drink and stay in the parking lot, sleep overnight. Just another experience of the 80s. But anyway, guys, I'm going to let you go. This is Troy Harper here at Harper Cigar Lounge. And again, this has been a great time for me to hang out and tell you guys my story. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. But guys, keep rocking out there. And if you're into cigars, keep smoking great cigars. If you're not, that's great. But keep jamming to some great tunes and break out those old albums, break out those old cassettes, and listen to those great albums, cassettes, and think about your past. Think about all the great things in your past. And I'm going to go have a cigar after this and listen to some music and think about my past a little more. Just some great memories, some bad memories, but more great than bad. So, anyway, guys, have a great one. I'll see you guys soon. And I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for a little while. And I love you guys. God bless. Keep rocking out there. Keep taking care of yourselves. I want to see you back here again. I'll see you guys in the comments. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.